Okay, so as always, I'm Al. This is the Geek in Review, and I'm going to be talking about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1, Episode 9, All Those Who Wander. Now, I haven't covered the last few episodes of this show because, to be honest, I've not had a lot to say on it, and anything that I did have to say wasn't overwhelmingly positive. I do have those episodes recorded, so if you do want me to post them, just let me know. But this episode, this was my favourite of Strange New Worlds by a clear mile. That's why I'm making this video. So I'm going to get into some non-spoiler chat first of all. And the initial setup isn't thrilling, but there's a lot that happens in this episode. And it does, go on to the whole Star Trek doing horror thing, which I don't think Star Trek does enough horror in space. It should do more of it. It's the very nature of space, it's horrifying, it's this terrifying environment, and the whole episode, or at least a good half or quarter of it, is sort of the first three Alien films all mixed together. Yeah, the Girn are back. I'm going to get to how they look and how they execute that later on in the video. And as I said, there's a lot of surprises in this episode going on. I'm not going to ruin anything here. They're setting up definitely some storylines for Season 2, which does raise a few questions for me as well that I'm going to bring up at the end of the video. But anyway, let's get to it. So it's another Uhura episode. So again, suck it Ortega's, and she's coming to the end of her training, so she might be leaving the Enterprise. But yeah, this was a bit of a weird one for them to pick up at the end of Season 1, especially this far gone. And we find out that there's only 2 cadets on board the entire starship. So that sort of explains why she was working between the different departments. But why add the story that she might be leaving when we know that she doesn't? She's only going to be back again, as Hemmer says in this episode. And let's say we get a few threads of Season 2, I think this might be one of them. Anne is speaking to a shrink or a Starfleet psychiatrist or counsellor, but they don't say what about, so I don't get why they were dangling that particular carrot. But anyway, the main sort of arc, or the main story of this episode is a starship needs saved, and it's not another Constitution class despite the fact that it looks like it, so I guess it's just the most minimal amount of work they could get away with doing a CG render of the Enterprise. I don't know. I'm going to watch Trek Yards because I think they'll probably pick up on that a lot more than I will. But the good part is they can use the same sets, and also K7 gets a mention as well. And yet Lieutenant Duke is dead. I'm just going to reiterate that throughout this till it happens, because as soon as I've seen this guy, he's at his promotion ceremony. The only thing they didn't do was go, well, your wife and kids must be proud of you. So they need to send teams down to a planet that they can't communicate from once they reach the surface, and it's an ice planet with a storm on the way, and yet Lieutenant Duke is definitely dead. But yeah, as I said at the start of the episode, Star Trek needs to do this sort of horror in space thing more. It does shy away from it, and I think it's called Night Terrors and TNG, but beyond that I can't think of a lot of horror related episodes. So we find out the Peregrine, that's the ship that's crashed on the planet, took on some mysterious passengers filled with Gorn eggs, and they've built the Gorn up all season. Does this pay off? I'll get to that later on. And when they heard the captain's message before they get into the ship, why not heed the warning and just run and go and wait the storm out in the shuttlecraft? Because they need to kill Lieutenant Duke because he's dead, I'm telling you. But we also do get more Hemmer along with Uhura, and yeah, it's been a while, and I like him, but the Uhura speech that he gave felt pointless because, again, we know that she's staying. And I did like the writing in this episode probably more than anything since the pilot of this show, but the stuff about the weird flashbacks from Benga and calling that girl his daughter and Lan, why? I just didn't get that. It took me out the episode a little bit. But yeah, as I said, there's a real Alien 3 vibe all the way through this episode. It almost hits those exact beats, and they use the alien that they find on board the ship to show us what could happen with a chest bursting scene from a human, which I liked because they were never going to get away with chest bursting a human on Star Trek on a streaming service. Doesn't matter how you do it, it just wouldn't happen. And yeah, Lieutenant Duke's seriously dead this time, and that was a great scene when you see the bigger Gorn they should have stuck to the whole alien rule and kept it in the shadows. I didn't like the CG of it, and I felt it again took me out the episode a little bit. Always have that suspense where you don't really see it. That really builds on the audience. But yeah, I like the setup, and maybe the Gorns are a little bit too evolved that, you know, they can't detect them through sensors, so they don't know who's infected. And man, Sam and Jim Kirk are cut from totally different cloths. He really freaks out, and Spock also freaks out. And I think there might be an answer to this. Again, I'm going to get to that later on in the video. But the whole plan to catch them and how we see it is right out of Alien 3. Even some of the shots and the way that they're done look pretty much identical from the Gorn's point of view. But one thing that you've forgotten about in this episode, and so has everyone else, is they get rid of number 1 and Ortegas this week by sending the Enterprise off. And I've mentioned it in my Orville video that we've seen Kelly, who's the commander on that ship, do a great job this week, and we actually seen her do her job. But what does number 1 do on the Enterprise? She's done nothing all season, and we get said 15 minutes in the Orville, and we need something like this. But anyway. But while I did like most of this episode once it got into it, I'm going to get to the big point here, which is until his death, Hammer didn't really do much, and I can't believe that they killed him off. I love the character, and yeah, I've got to say that this was a ballsy move, and it's something that the show needed. I've said it, and loads of other reviewers have said it, that there's been a lack of tension in this show and the fact that they don't know how to build it. And with all the book death fake-outs from Discovery Season 4, I felt that this death was earned. And as he says himself, he gets to go back out onto the ice where he's from. But man, did we ever need more of him before they get rid of him? And Ortegas must be really shitting herself at this point, let's put it that way. So this does raise a question of, are we getting set up for Montgomery Scott himself? And another one is that, are they getting set up for this TOS reboot that's been going about? There has been a rumour that this show is going to slide into TOS, and I didn't really put stock in it, but when you sit and give it a moment's thought, we've got a lot of players on the board already. We've got Spock, Kirk's coming in Season 2, Uhura's staying on the ship, and now we've got a hole there that's Scotty shaped. So, do you think that this show could end up being a TOS reboot at the end of the day? I really want to hear what you think, so let me know in the comments below. But yeah, going back a bit to when Spock got emotional, it happens again at Hammer's funeral. And is this stuff all leading to Cybok? He says he's losing control, and we know that Cybok's out there, so I think that we are getting set up for a Season 2 story arc with Spock and his emotions. And Leanne decides to leave the ship at least temporarily as well, so she's now off on her own mission. So this does raise a few questions of, is the episodic nature of Strange New Worlds going to continue if they seem to be giving long-term story arcs, or at least partially season-long story arcs, to some of their characters before Season 2 has started? I think that could work. I'm not the biggest fan of this show, but yeah, I think it needs a bit more sort of threads and continuity going through it rather than just going to Vulcan every other week. And also, how the fuck are you allowed to fire in space? That seems a really bad idea to have, man. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode, and the shock deaths in the Season 2 setups are interesting, but was the Uhura angle really necessary? Maybe because of our earlier links to Hammer. Number 1 is still pretty useless, but yeah, I do think this show is going to veer off the episodic nature next season. They're not just going to bring in Jim Kirk for one episode, and the Spock thing is not going to get resolved in a one-er either. And you definitely know they're going to have to go back to Vulcan for that one, man. But anyway, as I said, this has been my favourite episode of Strange New Worlds so far. If you'd like to see me post episodes that I've missed, I've got the reviews there, so just let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel.